Man, tough day at the office.
Are you kidding? You think today was tough? Tomorrow, I have 90 people coming in for Cisco Connect. I need to create wireless access for all these users. Can you imagine what that's going to be like?
Oh man, I think you need another beer.
I do.
So I was last night talking to Rick. He has a pretty big problem today. He has a Cisco Connect event. He has 90 customers coming in, and he has to create guest wireless accounts for all these 90 people.
Wow. Well, you know, the DX80 in the lobby has intelligent proximity. We could actually know who is physically there.
Well, that's pretty cool. We could even write a module that would maybe interact with it to then enforce only certain email domains can actually request wireless access.
Yeah, and to keep the whole solution secure, we could use ICE as a user database and tie it in with Umbrella for per-user policies.
Everything has APIs. All we have to do is tie it together.
Wow, and then we could finally use Webex Teams to actually communicate the guest credentials back to the users.
I think we could do all of this without any admin interaction with the actual users.
Yeah, pretty seamless.
Hi, Adam.
Hello.
Cisco, this is Don.
All right, so as you can see, or as you've probably experienced, being provisioned as a guest user is often a cumbersome process. In our example, you simply take out your phone, you pair with the DX80 using Webex Teams, and follow the on-screen instructions. The DX80 uses a function called HTTP feedback when the button is pressed to actually communicate with the CE API module. From the CE API module, it then reaches back out to the endpoint, gets the proximity information via an undocumented API, and then from there it hands the information off to the broker process, which I'll let Chris talk about, and actually provisions the account from there.
So the broker process is actually Python 3 running in a container that is exposed on the internet. We actually expose a REST API using Flask to the rest of the modules so we can communicate back and forth with each other. I actually work with Webex Teams to actually get information on the user that is passed to me from the proximity information. Finally, I'm also keeping a whitelist database in the broker to ensure that only certain email domains are allowed to be provisioned, and more importantly, certain devices are allowed to be provisioned on the network. Finally, once I get that information, then I pass over a REST API call over to Jason, which then handles the actual provisioning.
So the guest portion is written in PHP. It's running on a Kali Linux image running on top of Raspberry Pi. And what I'm doing is I'm taking the email address that Chris is passing to me and I'm comparing it to the ICE database to see if the user is created or not. Within that process, I either create the user or reset the password. And then what happens is in ICE, as that user is authenticating on the network, I tag that user based on their domain to a particular role. And that role is then assigned a policy with an umbrella so that we can control user access on the per domain level. So if we want to have certain vendors or certain people have access to very limited sites or very little content, we can do that while others have full access. I then pass back to Chris the user credentials I created for him to populate his database.
And then once I receive that final credentials back from Jason, I communicate the status back through Webex Teams. So the other advantage of this is it's actually forcing any guest wireless user to use Webex Teams. So we're driving up the adoption of Webex Teams driving the intelligence built into the endpoints, and also leveraging the security background of all the equipment that is already installed in the network.
Because we were 3 separate individuals working in 3 separate development environments, we actually built each module in its own container of sorts to allow us to work independently, but then bring the modules together into a full solution. It also allowed us to use REST-based APIs between the modules, and then we could actually use the language, the programming language that we were individually the most comfortable with.
Adam, Chris, Jason, what a day yesterday. Had 90 people come in for the Cisco Connect, had to connect them to the wireless network, used the Platinum Onboard process you guys developed. Unbelievable. Saved so much time. You're rock stars. Owe you dinner and a beer.